Hello. Welcome to my first attempt ever at doing a live stream. So let's see how this goes. A little nervous. Yeah, it's going to be low quality until I can figure out a better system. So, yeah. This video, I plan to center around the subject, the psychedelic community, because I really want to put emphasis and spread the word about the psychedelic community, that it is a thing, the utmost thing I want to promote. The psychedelic community is a thing. In Halifax, there's the Psychedelic Society, and in many other big cities, you'll probably find one too. And if there isn't one, you should get on Facebook and make a page or something like that. In these times, in the political climate that we are in right now, they're really trying to divide everybody. So now more than ever, we really need to stick together and through our differences and opinions, and be able to work together toward a common goal. Yes, so that was actually the first thing on my list that I wanted to talk about, was that the psychedelic community is community. So let's see what's second on my list. Nobody's chatting yet. Please do chat. I'm not sure how long this is going to take, but I'm just kind of going through this very rough list here of topics I wanted to talk about revolving around the psychedelic community. Right, so there's there's 3 people watching, and already got a like. Wow. There's people out there on a Friday night. That's awesome. I had a hell of a day. I was striking with NASCAD because they're underpaying their faculty. All the teachers are asking to do really big workloads with below standard wages. We have the highest tuition in all of Canada, and yeah, they're in the black, so to speak. So they should really be able to give equity and pay all their teachers fairly. And yeah, it's getting me stressed out. It's been over a week now of not having any class, and it's totally derailing me. So I'm trying to focus more on the videos. You guys watching my videos, who I really appreciate is watching, and yeah. So like, I really want you to know that this isn't just like an ego project that you can't be involved in. Everybody watching is involved in this channel, and we are trying to figure out what the psychedelic experience is in relationship to what's going on in our reality right now, which is quite a drag right now, to be honest. I'm still looking for work too. I got fired because they try to unionize. Man. Anyways. Okay, so I still got one person here. Okay, so the second thing on my list that I want to talk to you about is that in the psychedelic community, there is this imperative that we must trip. And I don't say this saying that like in unhealthy situations or when the time's not right. I'm just saying that we should keep in mind that it is actually of utmost importance to maintain some sort of connection with the psychedelic space, um, because this is the psychedelic imperative that we need to approach our situation from a different angle, and not necessarily make conclusions, but um, yeah, just approach things at a new perspective, because obviously that's what we really need right now is new perspectives. Space hippie 420. Yes. When I say like it's important that we must trip, the setting and the set are of utmost importance. Um, Otherwise, this is going to be counterproductive. We don't want to be traumatized. We don't want to fuck ourselves up, because even though most psychedelics are not toxic to the physical body, the psychological load is pretty immense. I don't know, like it's pretty uncomparable to anything else when it comes to psychological impact. So that has to be taken account of. Like, so so really, maybe what we should be talking about is how are we going to create better environments and headspaces so that we can trip more often. Because certainly, if everybody just went straight for the high dose psychedelic experience, um, uh, I think a lot of people would be pretty uh, rattled to their core, and maybe not in a good constructive way. Like we have to I think the reason for this is because or at least one aspect of it is because our culture kind of is saying this is impossible, right? So we really have to create a mindset going into breakthrough psychedelic experiences that what's going to happen is real, and it is going to be like a hell of a ride. Um, you know, uh, just recognize the reality of the unexplored landscapes of the mind, that it is a place you can actually go to. Yeah, probably the best time to do psychedelics is like on a Saturday night or a Friday night, um, because you got to give yourself a few days to integrate that shit. One of the hardest things, uh, it makes it the society makes it so hard to do psychedelics right now, because, for example, me, like if I did a high dose psychedelic experience and I had to go to work the next day, or I had to, I have to think about my homework, I have to stay on top of all this stuff. If I fumble the ball and start thinking about this other aspect of life, I could end up um, yeah, fumbling the ball with my other responsibilities. Um, so we need to have how often is too often? Well, I don't want to judge anybody. Um, it really has to depend on the person, because um, I'm sure some people really enjoy being in that headspace, and can even they even have the courage enough to, like, I don't know, do DMT like more than once a month, which is like great. And that's a lot for me. Like I'm trying to do it more often, to be honest. But I gotta be honest. I'm pretty I'm pretty chicken shit. It gives me anxiety to do it. So I can't. It's hard for me to imagine doing high dose psychedelic experiences like every month even. Um, but not everybody has that same anxiety as me, and I think the important thing is to keep in touch with this reality, being able to um, go back and forth. I think some people, like in the rare cases that psychedelics are addictive, when people are doing them like every week, like multiple times a month, and basically when becomes too much is when you stop being in touch with this reality. If the people you're talking to uh, can't understand you, you're becoming incoherent. You have to like start like integrating those experiences, or else we can uh, uh, fumble the ball on our responsibilities and be bad socially, and that gives psychedelics a bad name, and it's not good for individuals either. um, yeah, so I think basically too often is when at that point where the red flags are people are becoming concerned, and um, your responsibilities aren't being dealt with. um, Small doses is a whole other landscape, because at small doses you can just take it like medication, and some medication you have to take once or twice a day. So I think very soon, or actually it's already happened, microdosing is already becoming a thing, and so it's almost like people's medication. And I think before you even feel the effects, it does have cognitive um, effects even before you notice them. So I think that could be of great benefit. There's all sorts of different options there. Um, like the tryptamines are serotonin based, so you can help your depression and anxiety that way. Salvia, it goes through the kappa opioid system, and in Australia, according to what's his name? Oh shit, I can't remember his name right now. But they're doing tests in Australia for people with uncurable depression. Nothing worked up for them up to this point, and this person had deep depression, and just microdosing salvia actually helped them tremendously, and they didn't even like trip on it at all. So uh, drugs in the microdose range is almost a completely different conversation than the high dose, because high dose psychedelic experiences, that's a psychological load, and that's where the potential danger is. um, and there is psychological danger. This shouldn't be taken lightly. Psychonauts are very intrepid. DMT is very crazy, and so is salvia. um, well, all psychedelics are, but I mean, the intensity of DMT and salvia specifically are, yeah, it literally makes you insane. You think, at least you believe you must be insane. Actually, I can't say I felt that with DMT. I'm sure people might have thought that if they've never done it before, but on salvia, um, coming back, I was very concerned that I was going to be demented or deranged for the rest of my life. It felt like I couldn't speak properly. Properly, I was like, but DMT never did that for me. Yeah, like there's always like the pins and needles on salvia, and on DMT you don't get that. It was like more of like a an anxiety, like a really intense, like you're about to go down a mountain or like something like that. But with salvia, it's like pins and needles. It's like it's violent. It's some people feel like they're being cut in half at like certain points or sections in their body. Feel like their tongue is in an electrical outlet. That's the dysphoria. I think DMT causes euphoria and salvia causes dysphoria. Um, Oh, no problem. I'm glad you're enjoying this. Again, sorry about the low quality. Um, oh yeah, so I'm only on number two on my list, but number three was stay safe when doing this, and so we've already started discussing this. But oh, I got a whole subcategory up here. Um, so in order to stay safe about doing psychedelics, we have to take in mind at least these six things or more. Um, we have to research um, what is most what is the most effective method of use for you, um, because the method of use will drastically change the experience and what you're looking for. This is this is why you shouldn't just do drugs at a party. If someone says like, "Hey, you want to do drugs?" It's so ambiguous. Be like, "No, I want to know what drug I'm doing." I mean, if it's a party, hopefully it's like MDMA or something like that. But I don't want to be doing like PCP or ketamine or maybe ketamine. I don't know. Um, I'm get, I'm getting off topic. um, um, yeah, so what is the most effective method of use for you? Um, Doses, because as I was previously saying, dose is everything. Um, what are the hazards? That is something that's always got to be considered. Um, for example, salvia, um, not only does it knock you unconscious like DMT does, but it has this added feature that you lose control of your body. So your mind will be doing something, but your body can do something completely different. In your mind, you could be saying "whoa" and be going to the left, and your body is saying "no" and going to the right. I don't know, for example, and you can fall off your bed, drop your bong, um, jump out a window. That's actually happened on salvia. It's not as common as LSD. That's a myth. But on salvia, like shit like that can't happen. You're like a chicken with your head cut off a little bit. So I think with salvia that you should have a sitter. And each psychedelic has its own hazards that needs to be considered. Yeah, free PCP at a party. I don't know what I was thinking. Um, oh yeah, this is something that you should always do when you're doing a new drug is um, Google what happens with the mixture. There's usually forums with people who mix drugs. And when I say drugs, I'm not just talking about illegal drugs. I'm not just talking about psychedelics. I'm talking about any drug. Like, what happens if you have cough medicine with mushrooms? What happens if you're on antidepressants and you smoke salvia? Any like even like allergy medicine or pot. I usually forget about pot because I'm pretty much high all the time, but uh, but that's the responsible thing, because when it comes to antidepressants like SSRIs or SNRIs, um, tryptamine based psychedelics like DMT, mushrooms, DMT, they work through serotonin. Just like the antidepressants, and it can cause serotonin syndrome. And psychedelics on their own can't cause serotonin syndrome, not that I've ever heard of. But serotonin syndrome is something you do not want. I've learned this the hard way. I thought I was being responsible and actually gave psychedelics to somebody who was on antidepressants, and they didn't feel much, and I was surprised. And later, I found out that I put them at risk. Shrooms versus Coke, they're like incomparable. There's there's nothing at all similar. Um, I mean, maybe they're good together. I don't know. Yeah, wrong chemicals, wrong reactions, exactly. You know, you can alcohol is fine on its own, but if you mix it with cannabis, some people just black out and puke and shit like that. And that might not happen to you, but if you go on these forums, then you can read other people's experiences, and you know, that's how we learn, is through other people's experiences. So if you've had bad experiences too, you should be on forums. I think that's another part of my list. Ooh, I never actually candy flipped, to be honest. I tried MDMA 3 times, and I never really got off on it, so I want to give it a better shot. Um, but honestly, my interest is more so in the the hallucinations, that side of the psychedelic experience. For me, that's where I draw my inspiration from. I'm not really out to for euphoria. I mean, sometimes, but not all the time, I guess. Yeah, alcohol and benzos is a really great point. Even I'm pretty sure antidepressants too can make you like really sensitive to alcohol. I am I am so prejudiced against alcohol and antidepressants. I'm trying to be neutral about drugs, but man, they piss me off. I feel like, especially because since they're illegal, they just most people just put blind trust in the government. Like, oh, it can't be that bad if the government's selling it to me, right? But they're the worst. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mix Mixture with any other drugs. Experience reports what to expect. Yeah, so read forums about other people using that drug so you know what to expect. I mean, it's so sad hearing so many people going into the Salvia experience without ever reading about what it's like. Like, if you're not expecting dissociated dysphoria, it's a bad time. It's just a bad time. Um, Oh, and also how to make sure you have the real deal, as in make sure that you actually have the drug you want to take. So that sometimes that means getting a test kit, looking at other pictures of what it's like. You don't want to be smoking oregano when you want weed. Yeah. Yeah, when I'm going through this list, I don't want to make it sound like, this is your first time around and you don't know this shit. I'm just kind of like laying all this stuff out there for any potential newbies in the psychedelic community. Like, I really want to just spread the safety message, even if it's so redundant at this point for a lot of people. Um, yeah, don't mean to patronize y'all. uh, what's Yeah. Um, so the next one on my list for people in the psychedelic community is this is my opinion. What I urge the psychedelic community to be is more open with their experiences and opinions on psychedelics. Don't stay in the closet, so to speak, because in this time, especially, we need to be represented. We are still in the shadows for most of society. They don't, we, even if people will have negative opinions about you being a psychedelic type person, or there being a psychedelic community, we have to bring it to their attention that this is a real thing. It's not silly, and we take it seriously. Um, in terms of visual experience, MDMA, at least for me, brings out more spiritual ancient archetypes. Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's a good point. MDMA might change the visuals. Also, something I never thought about is it might actually relinquish some anxiety, maybe. Again, I'll have to look that up. The combination. Yeah, nobody fucking understands, and so we want to be understood, but I mean, truth be told, we don't really understand. I think that's what we have in common with the trans community. I mean, trans people are coming out more often, so like I think psychedelic people should be too. I mean, because nobody really understands gender and nobody really understands the psychedelic experience. So, uh, so we really need to be more vocal um, about psychedelics and our experiences. I mean, obviously, we don't want to like shove it in people's faces or anything like that, or like make anybody feel uncomfortable. We don't want to give the community a bad name, but we shouldn't hide it. Is what I'm trying to say, and you know, flaunt it a little every now and then. Somebody says you want a beer, and I usually say I'd rather a mushroom, but I rarely get mushrooms. Fuck beer, man. Okay, so number 5. This is one I'm really excited to talk about. Oh man, I already drank all the water. Okay, so number 5 on my list is share, support, and create. Okay, so we have to be sharing each other's psychedelic media and supporting it as much as possible, because the big boys upstairs and sorry, the upper class isn't really paying attention to us, and because most people are unaware of us, we have to take it upon ourselves to support each other, and kind of fulfilling our visions and creating creating anything. Just mainly, our society kind of puts us in a state where we have to just keep consuming, and we can do nothing but consume, and all of our output is just uncreative, downtrodden, arbitrary menial tasks that really should just, in my opinion, should be like a rotated task among the community. Instead, something like being a janitor or a garbage man or anything like that is put on individuals and kind of forced upon as our identity. And I really disagree with that. Why do I have to be a cleaner? Why can't I just clean sometimes, and we can just rotate tasks? Ah, man, I'm getting off topic. But being at a job 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, it drains our energy and puts us to a point where we have to just consume media. But we have to really harness our inner energy and push back by creating our own media, and it's going to be a more true version of reality than the shit they're feeding us on cable and Netflix too. It's pretty fucking high class LA bourgeois shit. I mean, Silicon Valley is subtly influenced by psychedelia right now. We can see this in with some good examples of Doctor Strange, the new Doctor Strange movie. There's a little bit of psychedelic references in the new Mary Poppins movie, but they're using it for their own creative self gain, and they're not sharing and supporting the community. They're because in this competitive mindset, um, that's when you have the tendency and um, to play dirty and kind of hide something or shelter it for yourself. Um, for example, if I had, okay, I know I'm getting off topic again, but if I had a tribe, there was just a little community that I grew up in the forest, and one day when I was on a walk, I found a freshwater river. Um, if my tribe was a community where we all worked together, I would want to go and share it with them. But that's not our society. Our society values profit first. So, in order to get the most profit and the reward of our capitalist system, you would have to put up a wall around that river, defend it, and make everyone pay and work for you in order to get access to the river where you get most of it, or you would just hide it completely from everyone else. And this is really bad and toxic. We need to be sharing and supporting each other. um, like, oh man, I should have made a list. But speaking of sharing and supporting, um, I'm gonna do some shout outs here. Yeah, so the psychedelic community is pretty strong on YouTube. Obviously, y'all know about Psych Substance. Salvia Droid is on YouTube. There's the Salvia Shaman. There's Shaman Oaks. Demi- Denite Dimensions is a friend of mine, and we've been talking about doing a collab video sometime. I've even talked to oh man, I'm just being put on the spot, so I can't think of it. There's TJ Travis. Um, there's so many. There's this. My friend just started a YouTube, so I wanted to share that. Yeah, Alan Mazza. Alan Mazza is a new YouTuber. Like, only has 5 subscribers, but like, fuck, man, go subscribe to him. He has some good shit. He has a more materialistic viewpoint, but yeah, uh, but it's a good perspective. I wish I can remember the other YouTuber. Any other time I would remember, but yeah, the other YouTuber is Sleepy E. Yeah, he's really good. Another friend of mine is How to Rock the Spirit, uh, and that's a good YouTube channel if you want to learn about astrological signs. Um, yeah, he's really into it, so like he can get all of that in detail. Yeah, so there's a few shout outs. Bottom line, it's important to support and share each other's artwork. You know, it would be, if I was going to get into the competitive mindset, then I would start trying to tear other people down and being like, no, I'm better than this person and I'm better than that person. And that's we weaken the psychedelic community by doing that. You know, uh, it's just not good practice, and it's also just it's not good. It's just not good. Um, we have to support each other, and we get better together. Embrace all different perspectives. Okay, yeah. So number 6 on my experience, or sorry, number 6 on my list is integrate your experiences. Um, a lot of people don't take time to integrate the experience. I was talking about this at the start of the video, at the start of this stream. Um, it's it's almost as important as tripping. It's or maybe no, it is as important as tripping. Because if you don't integrate the experience, then you lose coherency with our fellow muggles. We have to be able to talk with people, and also we have to keep in touch with reality enough to feed ourselves and perpetuate this body. We're here for a reason. We're trying to carry out some sort of mission, whatever that is. It's important to not lose sight of that. I know sometimes it's easy to kind of like stay in that psychedelic headspace, but it's you got to give yourself time in between, I think. And I can't say how long. It's kind of up to you to gauge. Yeah, number 7 is acknowledge the dark side of psychedelics. I know the tendency is to promote psychedelia a as if there is no downside to it, which is just untrue. There's negative aspects to everything, and the psychedelic community, psychedelics themselves, there are dark sides to it. Some people's lives have been ruined. Um, uh, some degree of damage has been done to some people on psychedelics, and it can be really scary and dangerous. Um, Another thing is that there has been cases of fake shaman who are actually sexual predators. I don't know why I laughed at that. It's not good, and yeah, yeah. So the dark side of psychedelia needs to be considered, and but with integration and research, I think it would diminish the dark side. I honestly think psychedelics are more good than bad. Truthfully, do. Yes, it's a group of fellow-minded people. I have noticed that there is sometimes malice and bad behavior in the psychedelic community. Most notably, if you have any criticisms of Joe Rogan, I got a lot of flack for that. um, Yeah, I was actually considering bringing that up when people or shaman put datura in your ayahuasca. Datura is to a degree psychedelic, but it is more of a deliriant and extremely dangerous. Um, and it's another case where, like, at the micro dose level, datura can be used to fight seasickness, and it's like totally not an experience at all, but pretty close to the threshold of becoming hallucinogenic and psychedelic. Datura is actually lethal. It's pretty close to that. It doesn't really take that much to overdose on datura, and it's hard to know what dose you're taking. And fuck, man, it can last for days. I want to talk about datura some other time because I find it really interesting, but I think I'm too chicken to ever try it. I just don't want to fuck myself up. All right, enjoy that drug and watch the video some other time, I guess. um, All groups people have. Yeah, cutting off your own genitalia and datura is just one of the many fucked up things I've heard of it. Some like people have jumped out of windows. People have fucking hurt themselves, hurt other people. Um, and not only that, like even if you didn't hurt yourself or didn't become delirious in that way, it's actually poison. You know, it is literally poison. I know I've actually read on some websites that they try to argue that mushrooms is poisonous. Just because it hurts your tummy and gives you a tummy ache does not mean it's poisonous. Datura is actually poisonous, and it sounds extremely uncomfortable. Um, uh, Extreme dry mouth or like coughing up liquid, cannot urinate, fucking, ooh, it just sounds so uncomfortable. Jello legs. Yeah, I mean, I've read some really interesting datura reports, but I would deem it too dangerous to try. Salvia, on the other hand, because it's not poisonous and it only lasts maximum an hour. Um, I mean, actually, Hamilton Morris said his salvia experience lasted 4 hours somehow. His chewed quid method salvia experience lasted over 4 hours somehow. But either way, salvia doesn't last that long normally, uh, whereas datura sometimes lasts 3 days peak, and some people never return the same from salvia, or sorry, from datura. Um, uh, just their cognitive functioning is just totally messed up. Although, and to speak fairly, salvia, people going into really high dose salvia experiences without any knowledge of what's going to happen have come out really fucked up too. But again, if you do your research and do proper preparation, that shouldn't happen. I feel so bad. I've had quite a few people come to me about being traumatized by salvia because they did 60x or 100x and they didn't even know what it was, you know, and it's honestly so sad. Uh, but if you take proper preparation, salvia can be safe and a tremendous experience. Datura can be a tremendous experience, but there is no real safe way to take it. Unfortunately, I think it's just way too dangerous. I'll talk about Datura some other time. 120x? Are you kidding me? Wow. I'm low key traumatized from the 20x experience, to be honest. But I mean, it really freaked me the fuck out. But um, I don't know. I guess I'm masochistic in some way. I think it was really cool in a way, and then quite invigorating, powering, just amazing. But a lot of people just can't come to grips with what salvia shows them. But at the dose of 120x, I think even anything above 20x for your first time, if that experience must have been so violently chaotic. I can only imagine the intensity. Like, man, they would, and there'd be no coherency. Man, I, salvia to me is like stepping on a moving treadmill if you know which direction it's going and how fast you might not get traumatized. Oh, so like if you can actually move with it. Honestly, the hardest thing with salvia for me was that I couldn't carry any information in there with me. I couldn't be like, just let go and go with it, or you know, I couldn't remember that because as soon as I was in there, it was all that memory was gone. Um, with DMT, I didn't feel that as much. Um, more uh, trials will have to be, more tests will have to be run. Yeah, so Yeah, so we acknowledge the dark side. Um, yeah, so after the dark side, and this is actually kind of connected to the dark side of psychedelics, is in my opinion, we cannot cling to theory. One of the things that I find is plaguing the psychedelic community is people clinging to theories and ideas like the pineal gland is the source of where our soul sits, and that explains everything, and that we excrete DMT in our sleep, and that's why we dream. We can't cling to these theories as if they're facts. Um, we're going to theorize and look at things at as many angles as possible. Um, when we cling to theory, then we kind of we lose respect to a lot of people, and you know I think it's just bad mental hygiene, to be honest. We should really consider as many theories as possible. I mean, that does not mean all theories are equal. For example, when I first heard about the flat Earth theory, I thought it was a joke. Then I met a flat earther, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is real." So I considered it. I watched the videos, the conspiracy theories, and I like thought it out. And there were points where I was like, "Damn, maybe we're on a flat planet." But yeah, but I looked at the counter evidence, and I came to my own conclusion. I mean, in my opinion, the best evidence of the flat earthers have is that the media has lied to us before and can very well be lying to us again. Like, I think that's a very valid insight, and it is true, but that doesn't mean the earth is flat, you know? Um, but yeah, I find with people that's into materialism, astrology, um, vibrations, chakras, all of these theories and concepts, we have to remember and take with some humility that they're not necessarily objective, absolute fact. And yes, that I put materialism in there with it because we don't really know what's going on definitively, and we shouldn't be clinging to these ideas. Yeah, we have to be able to consider more than one idea. Otherwise, we're just gonna subscribe to dogma. We're no better than you know freaking religious people. You know, one of the things that bugs me so much about bigots and racists is because they refuse to. Most often, they refuse to listen to counter arguments and uh, what we would call reason, but they have a different version of reason or rationality. And so, um, thinking about that, if you're in the spiritual or psychedelic community and you're clinging on to this idea that um, absolutely it's all uh, vibrations or something like that, I don't know, or that your spirit guides have been helping you. Um, you can believe that to a degree, but if you say that's absolute fact, then you know there's very little I can say for absolute sure. I don't really believe in absolute truth. I don't know. We can debate this. I'm not sure if I'm articulating this really well that right now. But and I don't mean to attack any ideology. I think we should just be able to consider that there's a degree of folly in anything that we believe in. Yeah, and proof is very uh, crucial. um, for example, a lot of people in the past have talked about spirits and talked about them in many different ways, that exactly how they work, but they have not come up with any proof. there's enough proof to know that there is some sort of spirit in Salvia, the shepherdess, but what that means, we don't know and we can't say for sure. So I'm not making any conclusions. I mean, that's pretty solid proof for spirits for me. But it's not like the ghost of Salvia is going to haunt your house or something like that. But there somehow seems to be a Salvia spirit in this experience, in this state of mind. A lot of people get hung up on the drug. So they're like, you think there's spirits in drugs? No, it's like, no, there's spirits in this state of mind that this chemical reaction allowed you to access. Or again, it could be. I'm not saying anything for absolute certainty. We're just gonna have to settle on the true enough, I guess. Sorry, I can't keep up with these comments anymore. I'm trying to get through this list. I'll read all that later. Don't claim the theory. Ooh, yeah, kaleidoscopic perspective. Yes, this is a philosophy of mine. Realizing that things aren't binary or separate, that things are much more complex than we know, and try to approach things with as many different perspectives as possible. And I think this is an important way to be, because if you only maintain the perspective of yourself, then you'll never be able to really empathize with other living things in other situations, or be able to see the task from outside yourself, at least try to. A good example of kaleidoscopic perspective is that, say this, normally we would just look at this and say this is a pen, but if you put on the kaleidoscopic perspective and start thinking of this, you start thinking of, what is the history of this pen? How long have I used it for? How long have I had it for? Where was it manufactured? Someone designed this pen. This is like a form in space, and it's 3D. It's gray, maybe like a warm gray. You can look at this object and have the perspective of an artist. How would I draw this? You can have the perspective of a mathematician, like, what is the square root of this? I don't fucking know. What is you can approach this pen at a psychedelic angle and be like, is this a product of my mind? Yeah, so like, don't just look at things one way. Try to embrace a kaleidoscopic perspective. I'll make a video on that some other time. That's good that you get yourself time. Yeah, so number 10, I've already mentioned this, but I'll say it again. Coherency with muggles. This is something that is very important to me, is that other people understand what I'm saying, and other people, and I can have clarity of thought. If we start losing coherency with each other, then that's when we're starting to give the community a bad name, and we're starting to do harm to ourselves, and ultimately everyone else. I've unfortunately seen this since I've started YouTube. Some people, I don't know. It's like they just like have run-on sentences, or this. It's like even people in the psychedelic community can't even understand what they're saying, and this is a bad place to be, because communication is key in order to survive with our fellow human beings. I don't think we should shun people for being incoherent by no means, but this is something that needs to be thought of. Uh, uh, Making sure other people can understand what we're saying and where we're coming from in order to replicate our means well. Um, yeah, because psychedelics is really crucial for our society right now. Um, I think the only thing I'm sure y'all know about climate change and that it's becoming really imminent. The uh, the point of no return is within 10 or 15 years. Um, if we need to get our asses in gear, and psychedelics could be a very powerful tool for society to reform its thinking. And so we have to try to get psychedelics into into mass media, into our social groups. That just like not necessarily shoving psychedelics down people's throats, but bringing it into conversations, posting it on your social media, just trying to get the psychedelic message out there that there's something going on with this reality, that these aren't just hallucinations. This isn't just a drug experience. This is a new frontier for the mind and could not only help our society with depression and anxiety and existential fear of death. Um, it can help us as individuals, as a community, and help us approach things at new perspectives in order to um, come up with new ideas. And they really are trying to push for this idea that society can only really be one way and it can only operate one way. But if we start putting our heads together and start expanding our minds with psychedelics, we can actually start reforming things. Like, don't underestimate the influence. It's dissolving our boundaries at the individual level, and we have to reintegrate that into the collective and dissolve the cultural boundaries, because these boundaries is what's killing us. Um, the boundaries of having countries is causing nationalism and therefore xenophobia and hatred of people from other countries. The boundary of gender is making people shun out anybody that doesn't conform to this binary. Um, the boundary of fuck, man, so many boundaries. The idea that there is such thing as race, it's actually just a political tool. There's no way to judge what somebody's race is. It's a surface thing, and again, it separates us. We need to look past these boundaries and be able to reunite as a collective. I mean, that's what psychedelics have been saying to us, isn't it? That we are one consciousness, we're one mind. So we really need to band together and stop this tyranny that is these tremendous hierarchies in society of some very few people owning, just hoarding massive amounts of wealth when there are people starving and our world is literally about to be destroyed and we're going to be going extinct. But the number one value of our society right now is profit. So we need to dissolve that model, that right at the very root, because it's killing us. There is a price for life. There is a price for the world, and the people that are buying it are abusing it, and the only way to stop that is to create a new model for civilization that says we can't put value on these things. uh, I don't claim to have all the answers, but again, if we collectivize as a psychedelic community, start coming up with new ideas of how to work together to save humankind, save the planet. This is imperative. This is the psychedelic imperative of the community. I think the psychedelic community is of utmost importance to the entire planet, quite literally. I mean, like you, I feel like I sound dramatic when I'm saying that, but no, I think the psychedelic community is quite possibly the most important thing for society right now. Um, Psychedelics aren't just this silly drug that is kind of getting in the way of the real problems, which is sexism, earth destruction, um, you know, massive wealth hoarding, and basically institutionalized poverty and imprisonment. The only way we can start to change our minds is through a radical perturbation of brain chemistry. We have to be able to force our minds to change, and we have to create an environment that allows that to happen. Like, how are we going to get our drunken sport loving uncle, conservative bigot, to try psychedelics? How are we going to how are we going to push this message that psychedelics is something that they might want to try? And once they try it, hopefully we get them, then that's when we can start reforming our minds and reforming the models of society. And we have to remodel our minds and society. This is my greatest criticism about Jordan Peterson, who is a defender of the status quo and is talking about psychedelics and therefore kind of wheedle his way into the psychedelic community, if you ask me. He is not about boundary dissolution whatsoever. He is about maintaining the status quo and steering this on this track where we can literally see where we're going. We're about to drive the whole planet into extinction with climate change, and there's nothing going to stop that while we have the regime of profit over life itself. That it's not going to change. As long as profit is number one, we're all going to die. And so we have to start thinking of a new model, and not only an idealist model that will work, but an idealistic model that will work and be able to defend itself from counter-revolutionaries, the people that will want to reestablish monarchy and all these hierarchies and placing all ultimate power into a few individuals. This is deranged. It's just a really bad way of modeling society. And again, like, I'm not saying there can be no hierarchies and no hierarchies will exist, but we can't give one person that much power over another person. We have to find our ways to level this out and maintain it too. Psychedelic community is really important to all of society because we have to start changing the regime, start changing our minds, and this is what's going to be what I call the psychedelic imperative. And the psychedelic imperative is getting us to this goal of what I like to call, this is our goal, our purpose as human beings, I think, is what I'd like to call the transdimensional migration. The transdimensional migration is the technological singularity that people have been talking about with AI and the way our technology is going. The technology is going to keep upgrading and getting faster and faster to the point where we can start replacing our body parts with upgraded things. We can start upgrading our minds. We'll just be going through rapid upgrades, and it will get to this point where we're unrecognizable to ourselves, and we'll be able to freely access the full dimensions of our brain. I have I know I just said like don't believe in anything, but I really believe that there are many more dimensions to our brain than we can perceive in our day-to-day state of mind or perception. So once we're able to access those, well, that's basically the singularity. I don't think it's going to be the AI, a new type of species, but rather that we will be able to access all of these new realms and dimensions of our brain, and yeah, basically transcend material, but basically transcend this realm. Because once we actually can start looking at how psychedelics work in the brain seriously, with no limitations of who's going to profit or who's going to fund these research, until we can actually start researching it like with no restrictions, that's when we're going to be able to find the mechanisms of action. It's not as simple as the pineal gland, because salvia works through a completely different network in the brain, the kappa opioid system, which I don't believe has any connection to the pineal gland, and is just as transcendental as DMT. So once we find the mechanism of action, we can start, we can literally expand our minds and just go through constant upgrades. And things are just going to keep happening faster and faster. But unfortunately, we are on the verge of becoming extinct. So, and this idea that profit should be of the utmost value is holding back this research of upgrading our technology, because instead of actually coming up with upgrades for humanity, we're putting all our money in new shampoo recipes to be fucking competed with all these other shampoo companies. It's just like, it's arbitrary shit like that, that's like just wastes of human potential. And once we liberate all the people in poverty and equalize the gender roles of people, we can start harnessing our full potential as human beings, and not just have it in the few individuals that get to reap all the benefits. And they're the ones that control the media and therefore are defending their position. We need to be able to put the power back in all of our hands collectively, expanding our minds and working towards this common goal of transcendence. And I think it's inevitability unless we fucking go extinct. And so we have to allow this. We have to like kind of clear the way. Like, okay, fuck profit. Let's fucking get this technological advancement going. Let's go faster towards this goal. I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime, but it's going to happen within the next couple generations. I think it's pretty imminent. Like, things are happening faster and faster, just as Terence McKenna hypothesized. He admitted himself that 2012 might have not been the date, but just the point that it's going to happen. And if you believe in the multiverse, then you should know that there are outcomes where humanity does go extinct and we don't reach the singularity, but we have to reach for the best possible outcome, which is transcendence and just leaving human history behind. Just, Because I mean, like I like being a human, but it can be quite uncomfortable, and there's a lot of suffering. I think we can do better. um, yeah, so I think that's it for my list. I'm really enjoying talking, but I think I'm losing my voice. I don't know how much you agree with what I was saying there. Um, Please keep commenting, and I think I'm going to sign off. Thank you, you six, for watching right now. Got 11 likes. That's awesome. Oh, I see. Tonight Dimensions is here. Woohoo! Much love, man. Yeah, the Night Dimension is awesome. Uh, yeah. Uh, yeah, augmented reality and virtual reality is just going to become reality eventually. Um, if if you ask me, money is a virtual truth. That's what I like to call it. It's a virtual truth is something that's true within the people that believe it to be true. If you take a dollar bill and bring it to um, a culture that's has been untouched by the momentum of human history, they don't know what that dollar is, and it has no value whatsoever. Um, so therefore, it's a virtual truth, um, or a cultural illusion, and we have to put our emphasis on the real truth. And virtual realities, like the things we're putting on goggles, um, and like looking at those screens, it's just going to become more and more real until it's actually in our brains, and we can just access different lifetimes and stuff and such. Um, I don't know. Okay, I'll just say this one last thing. Has anybody experienced this on Salvia, where you kind of like split into multiple selves? So there'll be the self on the bed or where you smoke it up, and then there'll be a self that's observing the trip, and then there'll be a self in the trip, having the trip. Has anybody experienced that? Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is an argument, I think, from Salvia, that we are already in a virtual reality, but we can't take it off like we do goggles. This is something we have to completely live through. Um, that this is just. I wish I can remember what those are called. They're like goggles, but they have the disc of pictures, and you hold it up to the light, and um, Burger King would have like pictures of burgers or something like that, or it'd be Toy Story promotions. And you used to put old pictures on it, and you just like flip a different picture, flip a different picture. That's what it's like with Salvia. You just like flip a different reality, flip a different lifetime, flip a different being. Um, yeah, I mean, it's pretty strong evidence that we're one consciousness, if you ask me. Like, um, if anybody else has a better explanation, I think really the people who think that it's just a product of the mind, that's just a way of pacifying themselves, that like trying not to acknowledge the reality of these experiences, that they are just as real as this reality. So to say that, oh, you consumed a drug, so therefore it wasn't real, I don't know. It doesn't hold much water, because then you can equally say that this isn't real. Hello, family. Okay, I love you, psychedelic community. Yeah, please support each other, love each other, trip, um, share, create memes, make art, um, comment, like, and subscribe. All the other psychedelic YouTubers, all the psychedelic artists on Instagram, all the psychedelic people on Facebook, all the psychedelic people that don't do social media or digital shit. Man, like, just connect with each other, find the others, share the memes to the muggles, let psychedelics be a prominent aspect of society. Come out of the shadows. We need psychedelics now more than ever. Um, we almost had a revolution in the 60s. We're more mature now. We've been having this subtle psychedelic renaissance where like they're trying to like make it a therapeutic drug, and I'm totally on board. But I think it's time that we need another summer of love. But this time we're fucking going DMT style. The summer of intergalactic love, interdimensional love. Okay, I know I said I'm leaving now. I'm having a fun time though. I should eat dinner now. Okay, I love y'all. Psychedelic community. Signing out.